Hi, Crystal at Dawn Institute here. I have Betty, our therapy puppy, in training. Betty has been part of Dawn Institute since about August of 2022. She's only 9 months old and she's still learning. One of the things that Betty has been really beneficial in teaching, particularly kiddos, is that sometimes Betty struggles with her behaviors, and sometimes those are called naughty behaviors. But one of the things that I wish people could understand about Betty and about children is that sometimes what we label naughty behaviors are actually just curious behaviors, and that's really important for development. One of the things that I have learned about Betty as she is growing up is that it's important to encourage curiosity for her because it helps her to be more prepared for small stressors and later even greater stressors so that she can bounce back quicker from those. And if I completely take away her sense of curiosity, she'll be more uneasy later in life. And so a lot of times what we might see as naughty behaviors is really her just exploring the world around her and trying to figure things out. And I don't let her do whatever she wants either. I have to draw some boundaries for Betty. Like she can chew this piece of wood in my hand, but maybe she can't chew the carpet or the walls or bed frames. And sometimes she might try to do that, especially when she was younger, but as she's gotten older, she's learned what she is allowed to chew and what she's not allowed to chew. One of the really special things about her, though, is that she has all kinds of emotions, just like children and adults do. And I think that dogs like Betty are incredible because they don't try to hide their emotions. Somewhere along the way as human beings, we learn that maybe emotions aren't safe or that they're bad. And so we try to hold them back, or we feel ashamed that we have feelings. So sometimes I'll pose this question to children. If Betty didn't show her emotions, what would be the problem with that? If she didn't show fear, even anger, if she didn't show when she was anxious, when she didn't show when she was feeling playful, we wouldn't know how to respond to her. And so if she didn't feel anxious, I couldn't help her walk through that. I have a funny story. There was a statue. It was kind of like looked like a face. It was pretty small. And she did not like that. She barked at it. She had her tail between her legs. She hunkered a little bit. And what I did, because she communicated to me, I feel very uneasy around this. What I did was I went and stood next to this glass statue of this head and just showed her that it was okay. And when I did that, she came and she sniffed it and eventually was just fine around it. But she communicated to me, something feels off, I feel uneasy, and I was able through body language to communicate back to her, it's okay. There's nothing unsafe about this. If she didn't show me when she was playful, which is usually her bouncing around and wagging her tail, I wouldn't know to play with her. And sometimes she'll actually come and put a toy in my lap and look at me like, hey, I'm ready for you to play. But over time, what happens sometimes is we, again, are sent messages either from our own selves or from other people that certain emotions, or sometimes even all emotions, aren't safe to feel. And so we start to hold them in. And as we start to hold them in, people around us don't always know how to respond. But all of those feelings that we experience, they're actually really good. I sometimes define emotion as the sensations we feel in our body that let us and others know what we need. And then we label them with words like happiness and shame and fear and joy and sadness and depression and worry and anxiety. But they're all guides that help us, right? When Betty gets that sensation of anxiety in her body or anxiousness in her body, she pants a lot. or she'll start licking a lot. And that is her body's way of saying, hey, something's off. It's her alert system. But it also alerts to me too, so that I can be there and I can support her. So I hope that that is helpful for you, for your children. And we're just so joyed to have Betty here as she supports families and children, as she supports people that have been through a lot of hard times. Thanks for being part of the Dawn Difference.